All right. Good morning or good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We're going to just give it a couple of minutes here for everyone to join. So grab your coffee or your lunch or whatever it is, sit back, and we'll get started in, 2 to 3 minutes. All right. So it's about 10:02, and we can go ahead and get this going. We've looks like got a few people who have joined. So, good morning or good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining for today's World of EUC webinar. Today, we have a couple of very special guests. One of our founding partners, I think our original founding partner, the one who was, one of the driving forces behind the founding of World of EUC is Liquidware. And today we have James O'Regan, product marketing manager, and he's also joined by Thomas. And he tried to tell me how to pronounce his name, but for me, it's a little too early in the morning for that. Today they're going to be talking about AVD and Windows 365 right sizing and how they make it easy with Stratusphere UX. So, James, Thomas, I'm going to turn this over to you. Just real quick, though, before we get started, if you have any questions for the presenters, please feel free to use the Q&A panel. If you have any issues with audio or the the presentation being shared on the screen, please reach out to us via chat. I'll be monitoring though the questions and the chat, and then we'll be breaking in at different times to get questions addressed. So everyone, thank you, and James, Thomas, please take it away.
All right. Oh, hold on one second. Okay, thank you so much, Sean, and thanks everyone for joining us today. It's really great to have this opportunity to talk to you today. So, as we said, we are going to talk about AVD and Windows 365 right sizing, but actually the right sizing can apply to any platform. So, Thomas will take us through that. We're also going to look at license reclamation. We've been doing some really interesting stuff around that for a lot of customers, so we thought that was a good topic because everyone has issues with licenses and the amount of that are out there. So those are just to kick us off, I wanted to give a brief overview of who are Liquidware. So we are essentially a digital workspace solution suite. What we say is we go beyond DEX. So you have traditional DEX companies. DEX, for anyone who doesn't know, is digital employee experience, but we go beyond DEX. So DEX traditionally has monitoring and remediation. We take it a lot further. Firstly, we have application portability with Flex App. So that's all about delivering your applications seamlessly. And we dynamically attach applications to, say, your AVD desktop or, your Windows 365. And what we do is we reduce that whole kind of image management because we extract the applications from the golden image. Then we have Profile Unity. This is all about user and application management. So, context-aware preferences, kind of how your desktop is delivered, how your applications look and feel. Then what we're going to focus on today is Stratusphere UX. So Stratusphere UX is all about the monitoring, but it's not surface level monitoring. This is really detailed diagnostics on every aspect of your environment. And we also have an optimization feature built in, which we're going to kind of talk about as well. So if you're, say, doing a migration from one platform vendor to another, you can do a side-by-side comparison utilizing Stratosphere UX. And, you can see if performance is improved, is it degraded, or, are you having issues, all of that. And then finally, we have our newest solution. So we have Command Control, which is a SaaS solution. It's our real-time DEX remediation solution. So it's all about kind of real time and being able to fix things. Kind of, you can identify the issues with Stratusphere, and then with Command Control, you can fix the issues. So as I said, it's our first SaaS solution. It essentially, we have a platform. You have the agent, all the metrics are displayed on screen every 3 seconds. It does a refresh. We have then a whole suite of remediation tools within it. So you can stop and start services, you can refresh them, you can initiate a whole kind of script. We have a PowerShell window, so you can initiate scripts on that particular endpoint. And what we say is this is all about kind of not kind of interrupting your end user. So everything can be achieved via the console. So while that's extremely powerful, obviously we need full security controls in place for that. And we have full RBAC controls in place for command control. So as I said, today we are focusing on Stratusphere UX. If you've got questions about any of our solutions, you can ask us in the Q&A. But I'm going to pass you over to Thomas now, who is going to talk about right-sizing AVD deployments.
Thank you, James. Should I just ping you when I need to change, or I don't know
Yeah,
if you can give me
yeah,
control?
yeah.
All right. So today I thought we'd take a slightly different approach. I was planning for 59 minutes of showing you features and abstract concepts. But instead, what we're going to walk you through is two real customer stories and what we did with them, what we learned from them, and hopefully time allowing lesson learned and what we did from those examples. The first one is going to be straight about right sizing and leveraging Stratusphere UX to optimize or right size an existing AVD environment. Go ahead, next. I'm going to keep saying next for the rest of the call. All right, so this one's going to be interesting because this is I picked up that example because it was actually something we've done the hard way, but it's probably one of the most complete story we have. So I thought you might find it interesting. For those who may know Liquidware since its inceptions, you may know that we've made our living when Liquidware was created pretty much doing assessments. That was our first foot in the market. We were using Stratusphere. It was the early days of VMware, and VDI was not even a word. I think at the time it was called VDM or something like that. And so basically, we done a ton of them. I think about at some point we looked back and we monitored probably about 2 or 3 million physical desktop as they were being monitored or considered to be virtualized. We've also seen a lot of customer after the first 5 years that did not do assessments and where customer used Stratusphere to kind of say, hey, what's wrong? Our initial estimate was completely off and learn from that. From there, we got a lot of feedbacks from customers. And to make a long story short, we basically, from the feedback we received from customer that use Stratusphere to right-size their environment at the time, not Azure, we got a couple things into we made some basically we learned from example and says, hey, in average we find that based on what the customer are telling us, we can save you X in right sizing. or optimization. And we did that for all our solutions. And we created kind of an ROI survey that would say, hey, if you use our tool, that's what you can expect. That's where we start here. Customer came to us, 15,000 users. They moved, I think it was during COVID, they moved their environment in a rush to AVD. And basically, whatever was promised to them, they didn't realize. Very poor user density. It was costing them a lot of money to just manage their environments. Obviously, went in a rush. So the sales rep got engaged with them, talked to them, and the first thing we did is we did a first survey, says how many users, etc. Without even looking at the environments, we came up with an initial findings and says we think we can save you overall about $4 million, organized in different categories, productivity, and about $2 million in optimization, which is about right sizing. So that was initial findings. Very proud of ourselves, big numbers. Move on. Next slide, please. Customer came back and says, that's great, but I don't want to see any soft cost. I don't care about them. I only want to see CapEx findings. And we actually had a proof of value running of Stratusphere in their environment. And they ask and they says, well, could you use the data on the sample we're using right now to revise and adjust your findings? Great. So that's what we did. So we moved from theoretical to actual database. For those who don't know Stratusphere, we collect a ton of information inside the guest OS. So we're able to, for example, look at CPU and memory. We can see how much CPU is consumed on a minute basis, and everything is timestamped, so we can trend information, look at peaks, valleys. We also know any user that logs into what machine. So single user, multi-user, persistent, non-persistent, we track all of that. Based on the information we tracked, we're able to look at the environment, adjust our findings, and we picked up, as you can see, from the full spectrum, we looked at 3 possible areas where we can find them: application optimization, right sizing, and the use of Stratusphere Optimizer to actually improve user density. Findings were across the board from those 3 possible changes. We would recommend $2.2 million in savings. Next. Customer came back again and said, that's great. I talked to my executive. We are under tremendous budget pressure. I cannot spend $1 unless you can give me back $1 within the same year. And your recommendation, although this seems feasible because it's based on actual data, I need to prove it. So we went back to the board with them. And by the way, just as a side note, since I was driving this and I was interested in the process itself, I was super excited. My account manager wasn't, because this was taking forever, but I thought the project itself was a huge opportunity for us to learn. So based on the environment where we had Stratusphere running, so we had a sample of we didn't run on their 15,000 user in AVD. I can't remember, it was probably a couple hundred where we had Stratusphere running for the proof of value. We turned on a feature of Stratusphere called Optimizer. It's now called Process Optimization. Sorry, James, butchering up the marketing. What Process Optimization does is it monitors the process being used by the end user. And when you reach contention, so when you don't have enough resource, it will elevate the priority on the processes that are in the foreground, and if necessary, reduce priority for the processes that are in the background. What it does is it, excuse me, free up space and avoid negative user experience when you are at contention, which was exactly what those machines being used by multiple users were experiencing. So monitoring, and basically we did both a before and after, as well as running two different groups of machine in parallel to account for variation during the week, making sure we're comparing apples to apples. But what we generally saw is a significant improvements in user density. I think the initial findings were somewhere between 40 and 50%. So you could increase your user density on your AVD instance by about 40, 50%, which I don't need to tell you. If you can run 50% more user on a single machine, you need less machine. And that's a huge impact on costs. After proving all that, the findings were, hey, we think we can save you about 1.5 million just by applying those changes. Next slide.
Just before we go to the next slide,
Yeah.
Thomas, I just wanted to talk a little bit about process optimization and to point out for anyone who's not familiar with it, this is not throttling. This is
Yes.
prioritization. So it just wanted to make that clear distinction in case anyone think, okay, you're throttling processes and that's why you're increasing density. That's not what we're doing.
Great point. Great point. And I would say this, that the improvement on user density was not necessarily a given when we first tried it. Because again, if you look back at the goal is to minimize the negative impact when you're reaching contention. So in theory, you could look at it thinking we should not change CPU and memory usage. It's the same. It just happens that the user doesn't feel the effect of it. But it's almost like a side benefit when you have multiple user connected into the same machine, that by basically reducing the impact of the background application, it freed up resource on the machine so more user could access it. So the primary goal of Optimizer, which was to improve user experience, at this point in this project almost became a secondary benefit. The primary benefit was I can put 40% more users. Oh, and by the way, they're having a similar or better user experience than they had before. So it was kind of a double whammy.
Yeah, and also while we're on Optimizer, you know well yourself, one of our senior solutions architects, Matt Boyajian, has been using Optimizer, and what he's found it actually stabilizes applications as well.
Yes.
So we by utilizing our own technology, we've kind of found more kind of use cases for it as we've kind of utilized it more, and we're able to deliver different results for based on what a customer is looking for.
Thank you. All right, conclusion. So we present the report back to the executive, and besides Optimizer, Stratusphere was also able, it's not explained here in detail, but if you look at the monthly price column of what we recommend with Stratusphere, one thing that we found out was that the Azure instance were not properly sized. Now, I don't mean just the number of CPU and memory, because we're looking at multi-user. So to some extent, it's a shell game. I can put technically twice as many users on a 16-core machine that I can do on an 8-core machine, just moving around the numbers. The first thing we found was that the customer picked, and I think it was, I'm not sure if it was a Microsoft recommendation or something else, but they picked an instance from the wrong family of type of instance. If you're familiar with AVD, you have a catalog of hundreds of different instances. Some of them are organized in, well, most of them organized in multiple categories. You can have, I think, the general purpose one, CPU optimize or compute optimize, memory optimize. And then you have a couple of specialized one, highly specialized, disk, network, GPU, etc., etc. If you look back at the first three families, the main difference between those three families is the ratio of gig of memory allocated per core. If I remember correctly, the general purpose is 2-to-1. So for every core, you're going to see, no, it's actually 4-to-1. For every core install, you're going to have 4 gigs of memory. Compute optimize is going to be 2-to-1, and memory optimize is going to be 8-to-1. Now, the first thing we did with Stratusphere is observe and note the ratio of memory used versus CPU used. From that, we derive the number of cores any typical instance or any instance would typically consume and need based on their actual consumption. And then we looked at the ratio between them, and I can't remember which one was what were the mistake. I think they were going with excuse me again, CPU optimized where they should have been memory optimized. And why it matters is, and it's the issue is made even more glaring in multi-session environments. You don't want to use an instance where you're going to max out on CPU, where barely touching memory, 20%, 30%. So the ratio to start has to be right. Obviously, you're never going to hit the nirvana, where you're basically hovering at, I don't know, let's say 70% in both cases. But I would say that's the first step in the optimization. Make sure you're using the right machine type or instant type before even deciding if you need 2, 4, 8, or 16 gigs of memory. So that was the big thing for us. So by realigning the instant type, if you look at the monthly price, we went from something that was costing them 367 but was not optimized to 420 a month. That's list price at the time, but was a lot more optimized. And thanks to that, picking up the right type and optimizer, we were able to prove that we could raise the density from 8 user per instance to 12 user per instance. Funny story on that one. If you look at the column on the right, obviously we didn't dare asking the customer, how much did you spend? How much discounts are you getting from Microsoft? So we just assume a standard discount of 10%. We present that to the executive, and I think might not have been the CIO, but maybe one level below, looked at that and laughed and says, well, I wish we're with 12,000 users running on AVD, they were getting 6% discounts from Microsoft. So that was a fun story. Anyway, long story short, based on the sample we collected, we proved that running with Stratusphere, picking up the right type of instance, and turning on optimizer, they could reasonably save $1.5 million per year in their Azure subscription. And that could have been the end of the story. Customer was excited. They became a customer. We signed. We started to implement the solution. Next one. But later on, about 6 months into the implementation, the customer came back to me, not to me, to our account manager, and says, hey, I need to monitor the value realization. In other words, I need to make sure that those numbers you promised we've actually are achieving. So they engaged us to actually take a look at the environment and measure density, no longer on a proof of value, but in their actual production environment. So we created for that purpose, and that report is actually now available. We made the report using Stratusphere data, obviously. So we created a custom report using our API and Power BI. So that's now a template that you guys can use, where we compare the density and eventually the usage of their AVD instance in real life. Now you'll notice if you look at, I won't take you through all the data, but if you look on the top right corner, you'll see that the density change is disappointing. We improved the density by 8%, 9%. So we're kind of disappointed in that. Granted, it was based on maybe a week of data until we start digging into the information with them, and we realized that two things happened. One, they didn't make the first recommendation changing the instant type on all the machine. Was still planned, ongoing. Doesn't happen as quickly as it should, apparently. Sorry. So that was an issue. And two, they've added new application in the mix. adding to the overall usage of their environments. And looking, I don't have all the details because it's their data, but looking deeply, just a new application, the resource it was taking was accounting for somewhere around 20%, 25% of their resource, therefore explaining why the density hasn't improved that much. The fact that we had the visibility into it was really an eye-opener both for us and the customer, because then we switched the discussion from, oh yeah, we're not as good as we could, but really understanding why it happened allow them to look at it and says, wait, if we didn't have Stratusphere, if we didn't have Optimizer, our density would have decreased, basically, went down by about probably 20% or so. So even though it's not status quo, and that was the big thing we realized, which was we can't, nothing is in a vacuum, nothing is going to stay consistent. It allows us to measure the impact even when life happened, new OS, upgrade new OS, adding new application. So we're looking more at cost avoidance on that case, but the ability to measure all that was allowed us to track all that. Next slide, please. And finally, a year later, they actually, sorry, I thought they went through, I believe they went through a merger, and their CFO mandated that every single piece of technology being used in the environments need to prove value in order to be retained. And this was not going into dirty laundry, but this was an internal fighting between the two companies being merged to choose which product they're going to drop, basically. And that applied to platform, every IT investment you can think of. So they asked us to come back again and look back after 1 year. And the call was very interesting. We looked back at the data, we compiled the data, and we realized that they basically saved or avoided about 1.3 million after the first year. I was ecstatic, and I think that's the first customer that we went from an initial discussion to implementation to looking backwards and looking at value realization and looking back and says, okay, we actually save not exactly what we promised. If you remember that the initial projection was 1.5 million, but looking back and be able to validate that we actually saved 1.3 million was a great experience. For me, it validates our numbers, and a couple things came from that. By the way, if you're interested, I think the cost from that project was about probably 300K for the Stratusphere license. What we took from that, and what you guys could use if you want to, is two things. That process was awesome and exciting, but the initial step was fairly manual. We ran report from Stratusphere and adjusted that to what they want to do. Since then, we've actually created a template report that will do all that process for you. So it looks at it's pulling all the data that we need, just that, from Stratusphere, looking at peak and valleys and CPU and et cetera. It's comparing that with data we're collecting from AVD. So basically plug and play. So you can look at it and it'll tell you what is the machine type or the instance family, rather, that is better suited for your environment. And it will allow you to play the what if scenarios and tell you what instance type or specific instance each of the current machine should be in. It's a report you can use either as a greenfield, so you can use that report if you're considering moving to AVD, or it's a report you can use for your existing AVD environment and see what recommendation it'll give you. The second thing it brought us to create is we now have an entire value process, not product specific. It's not in Stratusphere, but it's something that our teams are now using to partner with our customers. It's more a collaboration approach where we laid out what we expect from solutions in terms of value, not so much, I would say, features and technical details, but we project what we think it will bring to you. And we've added the value realization portion, which means that we really want to work with you, not on the first year, but year after year after that, and make sure that you are getting the value that you're looking for in our solutions. So, yep, that's it for the first story. Let me do a quick pause, see if there's any question.
I am not seeing any questions in the Q&A panel or in the chat, so you guys are good to go ahead.
Thank you.
Okay, just to kind of set this up. So we're going to talk about license reclamation. It's something every organization faces. If you think about it, I've had, numerous times I've had where I have requested Visio or something like that or project, and I literally use the thing once and it just sits on my desktop. If you multiply that at scale, you can see the amount of wastage of application licenses. And this is kind of what we're focusing on because it is a huge problem across pretty much every company. And we have found that we've really been able to kind of dig into the usage of applications within organizations and the cost savings we can make by with them. So over to you, Thomas.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, Thomas, real quick, just before you
Yeah.
jump in, one question just appeared in the Q&A panel from Gregory asking what was WO in one of your graphics on one of your last slides?
WO without maybe Oh, I think you might be referring. Go back until you see the optimizer. Yeah, node without and
Okay.
with. So we're basically looking at number of nodes, number of user without optimizer, and the density. So the first three columns in orange shades are reference points. So those are instance running in AVD that are not leveraging optimizer. So we basically turn off optimizer. And the one on the right in the blue shades are the node with optimizer that basically, so we can see the difference.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. So we'll talk about licensing. I put FlexUp in there for some weird reason. It's still driven by Stratusphere, but I'll circle back to FlexUp because in my mind, license reclamation seems easy on paper, but there's two very big components to successfully reclaim cost from licensing. And the first portion is Stratusphere, and that's necessary to lay out a plan and basically map where do you have unused license. So without that, you can't get started. Second one is actually the execution, and we'll talk more about that later. Next slide, please. All right, so we have in Stratusphere, and it's something we've been talking for 20 years. We track licensing, we track software usage. Doesn't matter what type of software or application, we track it. Whether it's installed in your add remove program, we track it, or not. We see a process running in your task manager, even if it's not installed, even if it's a standalone process, we'll track it. So we see every application out there, whether it's launched by a real person like you and me, or if it's launched by the background process. We know what machine it's installed on. We know the publisher. We know everything there is to know about those applications. We know how many machines it's installed. We know how many machines have actually launched it or where it's running. We know, excuse me, how many seconds it spent in the foreground. We know CPU, memory. We know the network latency to whatever it's talking to on the backend. Everything you want. And we have a very simple report in Stratusphere. By the way, there's about, I think we're close to 300 CAN report in Stratusphere that are there. One of them is called license usage or soft application usage. We're comparing application use versus install. And for the longest time, we were like, great, that's all we need. give that to customer. It's one of a pitch and says, yeah, go for it. It will tell you everything. So one of our customers actually took us, asked us to say, okay, great, but I need to know exactly. This is going to justify my investment. Again, we're going back to ROI story if you want. And they ask our help to justify or measure and predict how much it could save. Problem is, for us, we don't know how much application costs. No idea. We don't know what application are free or not. The report, if you want, is a gigantic list of every application found running. Close that. So we start with that customer, we run the report, and the end result was about 4,000 rows of application. What we did is we took that list. You can run the report in PDF or PowerPoint or Excel, which was what interested us. Run that report in Excel. We did a quick scanning through. You're able to filter, for example, the patch OS application or middleware. So none of that. We removed all of that. And then we took off just by eyeballing the list, everything that we knew were useless. Web browser, any Office application actually. And we came back, I can't remember the list, but we came back with like a subset on that list. So one, run the report, review the Excel spreadsheet, maybe 20 minutes. We actually then took that list and turned around, open and dump that into ChatGPT. And we asked ChatGPT 2 questions. It's like, take a list of those applications and tell me which one actually requires paid subscription. And from what the shortlist they came back, we look at what type of licensing they were using and if they had enterprise options available. So that gave us the cost information, knowing, of course, that, as you guys may know, ChatGPT is not 100% accurate, but it gave us something to start with. So I looked at the list back and we remove any licensing model where we don't think we can help. Things based on number of servers or items that you launch or whatever. We also removed all the application that have an enterprise license available. The thought process here is that if you have an enterprise license, even though it's not 100% true, the fact that you use less than what you paid for is irrelevant. You're still going to pay that price. It's my experience, it's less and less true because those enterprise licenses now are based on the time scale. So it's for 2 years, 3 years. So you still have that opportunity. And even though they say it's one price, it never is one price. Every price is custom. So in 3 years or in 2 years, you're able to review that and renegotiate the license. But we excluded that. Next slide, please. So we looked at the data for 2 weeks, looked at the license options, removed the enterprise licenses, and we also consider the contract renewal terms. The general adjustment we wanted to make is it's becoming more and more frequent nowadays that you're getting into 2-year, 3-year contract terms. So we didn't want to assume that you would save all money up front. We also wanted to be cognizant that it's one thing to know that you paid for 100 license, but you're using 20. It's a entire different story to implement that. Look and find the users and tell them, okay, I'm going to remove that from your image, etc., etc. It takes time. Not considering that it's also very complicated. So we also wanted to account for that factor and saying you're never going to reach 100% of those savings in the first 6 months. Next slide. End result is, again, a new custom report we created that is now a template that allows us to get that data, and we're starting now to build almost like a database from things we've learned customer over customers about the cost of the application, the cost of the software. So the more we do them, the smarter we get, or the I would say the more complete the report is. But this fact notwithstanding, even if we don't, you're free to just take that list, dump that onto ChatGPT, and I'll give you the answer. So we took we plug in the information provided by Stratusphere and run the report. We added basically two variables in there. We're taking the numbers from ChatGPT. We have a discount that you can use as a variable. So you can adjust the prices based on what you know you've paid. And a year one realization factor. Again, this goes back to based on your knowledge of your environment, how fast or slow or how easy or complicated it's going to take to actually realize those savings. So playing with two, you can actually accurately estimate how much savings you're going to be able to achieve. So that report is now a template, again, built on Power BI, plugged into Stratusphere that you can use tomorrow. Next slide.
Just on this slide,
Yeah.
Thomas, some of the numbers here, like 12,000 licenses of Adobe Acrobat unused. Like it's,
Is that for real? Is that what you're thinking?
I don't know.
Yeah. My first, I remember this was also, by the way, a real customer. And if you look at the number, the bulk of it is
Yeah.
Adobe Acrobat. So we go in and up front to the customer and says, I don't know, are you paying for that? And it turns out that on the call was not only the IT admin, but also the software asset manager, the person in charge of all their contracts. And she looked at it and says, yep, we spend that much. And I'm like, are you sure it's not, there is like Adobe Reader in there that we're just counting in there? I was like, nope, it's accurate. There was a couple in there that we removed, and that was again me super excited. That was very interesting to look back because I can't remember. Oh yeah, Global Protect, which is the one before the last. They looked at it and says, yeah, we know we're rolling this one out. We have a new antivirus agent coming in. So the fact that we're not using it makes perfect sense. But it's not thanks to Stratusphere that we're saving money. It's actually ongoing. So that was a really good learning experience. But Acrobat, yeah, paid license.
Wow.
I'm trying to remember. Oh yeah, I remember. This customer was a hospital. So I don't know, maybe they use it, they decided to put that. Now I hope I didn't share, yeah, I didn't share anything, but this was really interesting. I mentioned before that the software asset manager was on the call and they were like, oh, I can't believe that's real. We need to double check. So they actually sent us, and I was less happy, their 12 months purchasing report for all the assets, all the software asset, everything. So I removed everything that was, like reference to them. And they send that to me. The spreadsheet is like, I don't know, 10 megs. And it says, go, update, reconcile based on what you found. And that's where I learned a couple things that were interesting. One, the way an application is installed in a Windows system, the name, so, Acrobat, Microsoft Office, is not the same as the name on the quote. It usually never is. And so reconciliation was a pain, huge pain. And there's a lot of them I was not able to reconcile. But what I did find interesting was that the pricing provided by ChatGPT was wrong, never on the money, but we were in the, I would say, plus or minus 20. So I had some price, most of the price where I had some that were 60 to 80% cheaper than what they were paying. And again, that's assuming our, I would say, 20% discount that we roll into that. But one of them was in 120% higher. But still, I was pleasantly surprised by the numbers I received from ChatGPT, because it allows you to give you a decent ballpark. Still, reconciliation to actually know for sure, that's a pain. That's really a pain because, and liquidware is guilty of that. If you buy something from liquidware, we'll put something like liquidware Stratusphere, and it's tough to reconcile that from that's not how we install in your system. So that was, I wish I would have been easier, but still interesting to know. Now for the biggest thing, realization piece. Now you've come to that point. We've matched, validating the numbers. We looked at it and says, yep, you can save 1.4 million. I think in their case, it was slower because of the antivirus. How do you get there? How do you actually realize those savings? Well, it's easy, just remove it. Well, it works well for physical desktop. But on AVD, when you're running everything from a base image, you're not going to create 257 different base image for the different use case. That's where FlexApp comes in. FlexApp allows you, if you guys are not familiar, I'll make it short. FlexApp allows you to take an application, package it as a VHDX. VHDX is just a file that behaves like a disk. And then that application is mounted on the Azure instance at logon, for example. Different ways possible, but let's make it simple. And it's regardless of what device you log into. So the application is not on the base image. If I decide to give Acrobat Reader to Sean and James, but not Jen, only James and Sean get it. So FlexApp is almost like the magic pill or the secret weapon to actually implement those change and get those benefits. Because now I would say the allocation of application is no longer tied to the base image you don't need to install, etc. You can use filters in FlexApp so that it makes the entire, since it's completely separated from the image, makes your life a lot easier. And that's what I wanted to bring forward in mentioning that Stratusphere gives you the map, tells you everything you want to know. You can validate that. But tools like FlexApp, and there are other tools, by the way, is the key to actually realize those savings. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice. Good thing we're getting to the top of the hour. Last, I wanted to maybe share a bonus story, if you don't mind, Sean, James, going to the next one. I'm going to share a third one, which I thought was really interesting. Not much detail in there, but this is bouncing back on licensing reclamation and right sizing. Wanted to follow on the FlexApp story. This was a customer running Citrix on AVD and using Citrix application layering. They came to us looking for savings, potential savings or optimization. So we used Stratusphere to do the right sizing, similar to the story you had before, except this time we had the template report, so it was a lot easier. We then looked at FlexApp for license reclamation, and then figure out, doing it with the customers, that one of the small difference between Citrix app layering and FlexApp is that we don't require to cache or install a copy of the layer on the instance. From an Azure storage perspective, it was crazy because basically they had like those big layers that are every application. So when you look at the application cost to your environment in AVD, you have like a double whammy. First, you pay for license because you install the application on the base image, gives it to everybody, whether they need it or not. Two, the application is going to take storage on every instance. Now, fast forward to FlexApp. You only give in the application to the people who pays for it, reclaim that license. Two, you only have basically one disk footprint of that application. I can give the application to 10,000 users. My footprint, let's say the application takes 200 megs. my footprint is 200 megs once instead of 200 megs times 10,000. Just based on that, if you look at the numbers, there was we reduced a lot of them, but it was just crazy. They're saving about 800K per year. 300 of that was just Azure storage cost. The additional storage cost they have to pay for each instance to make room for the application being layered. So regrouping everything together, Stratusphere to know where the issue is, but FlexApp to execute, big difference. And I think that's all I have. Oh, we talked a lot about savings. If you don't want to talk to me or James or anybody, and you want to get a feel, we've added to our website a value calculator. It's not detailed, it's really basic, but that's a great way to get started, and it'll give you a sense of what you can expect.
Thanks very much, Thomas. All
My
right,
pleasure.
just a couple of slides from me just to finish off. So I wanted to talk about we have a new program. It is called Liquidware Sparks. What Sparks are essentially are add-ons to our applications. So we have some around Profile Unity, we have some around FlexApp and Stratusphere, and these have been built by our SEs. And what we've done is we have introduced them and we have a channel within our Slack community where you can talk about them, come up with alternative ideas. But this is basically these are not added into production releases. These are kind of just sparks essentially. So they're little additions. We have one which is called Power Tools. It simplifies Stratusphere and allows you to kind of hone in on what is important for a particular user set. So it's all on our website. You can check out Sparks. As I said, if you want to talk about it more, we have a dedicated channel on our Slack community. Speaking of which, we would love to have you join our Slack community. This is a community event. We're all about community as well. So here is the QR code for our Slack community. And just in case that's not a big enough incentive, if you join us before the 15th of December, we are doing a draw for this Lego Goonies set. So um, I'm 49, so I grew up with I saw the Goonies movie when it came out. So this is an awesome set, and we're coming up towards Christmas and probably making an amazing Christmas present for someone. So to enter in the draw, you just need to go to that QR code, and that will allow you to sign up to our Slack community. I just wanted to say thanks to the World of EUC for having myself and Thomas today. It's been a pleasure to present. You can reach out to us on Slack if you've got any questions that you didn't get to today or you want to ask privately. You can send them to us on our Slack community, or you can DM me or Thomas on that Slack community as well. So that's everything from us. So thank you very much for your time. I will hand back to Sean.
All right. Well, James, Thomas, thank you for a great presentation today. Um, I I know I've used Stratusphere in the past, and I think I learned a few things around. First off, just hearing the customer stories about the value they saved with AVD, and then the license reclamation features were great. So thank you for joining today. I have a few end slides to wrap things up. So give me 1 second to share out my screen. All right. All right, so one of the things that we have with World of EUC is the benefits program. The benefits program allows our founding partners to make some of their products available to our members to use in their home labs. One of the first partners, actually, I should say the first partner to join the benefits program and make things available is Liquidware. So they have a community license pack that you can sign up for. So if you just scan the QR code, it'll take you to our benefits program page where you'll get access to I believe Stratusphere UX and Profile Unity and Flex app. To go along with that, there is also the community license of command control that you can run all of these in your home lab. You could try it out with your personal VDI environment. I actually have the command control community pack. I've had it for a couple of years. I stuck an agent on my father-in-law's laptop when my wife and I gave him a new one. So that way, if he ever has a problem, I can just pull it up in command control and, take a look, see what's going on with it. So, you get that opportunity to try it out, to use it on your own machines and test it out in your lab and, share some, feedback with James and Thomas. All right, so beyond command control, EUC World Amplify. This year we are going to have two Amplify events. First, coming up on April 29th, we are going to have a virtual event. Online, you don't have to travel anywhere. We are going to have more information available on that soon, including call for papers. Then we are going to be meeting in Milwaukee from September 29th to October 1st for EUC World Amplify in person, right? So we've had the same event that we've had the last 2 years. Last year we were in Minneapolis. This year we're going to be in Milwaukee. Uh, so we would love to see you there. Not only are you going to get great EUC content, but because you're in Milwaukee, there is a really good chance that there's going to be some good brats and some good beer. Um, so yeah, please keep an eye out for more information on both of these events. We would love to see you there to get some great EUC knowledge and to get some great community interaction. If you are in Calgary or Colorado or Idaho, we have some upcoming local group meetups. Uh, Calgary is what's today? Today is the 3rd. So Calgary is tomorrow, and they're going to be sponsored by HPE. Colorado is having just kind of like an end of the year get together coming up next week. And then Idaho has ACIM coming up on December 17th. So if you are near any of those areas, scan the QR code and, attend the local meetup, meet some of the local EUC community near you. Jen has posted in chat the links to the benefits page and to the events page. So if you are looking for more information and you're on your computer, you don't have access to a phone to scan the QR codes, you can click those links in chat to go directly to the benefits and events pages. So with that, we have a lot more coming on worldofeuc.org. Today's webinar and some of our past webinars will be posted there. We have a video library, blogs, podcast, and more information about the benefits program. And finally, join us on Slack. So we do have a World of EUC Slack channel. That's actually how World of EUC got started before we formed this community as a formal user group. We had the Slack channel. There's Slack rooms or sub channels for basically any topic related to EUC, things about home lab, AI, and things even beyond all that. So if you are not part of our Slack, I highly recommend you join it. Along with that, check out the Liquidware Slack that James and Thomas mentioned in their presentation today. And again, thank you to Liquidware. Liquidware is one of our original founding partners for World of EUC. We wouldn't be able to do what we do without them. So James, Thomas, from the World of EUC board, thank you for being a founding partner. Thank you for joining us today to share what you've been working on with Stratusphere UX. And with that, thank you to everyone who took some time out of their day to attend. We really appreciate your support of the community. So have a great day, everyone, and thank you again. Happy holidays.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Cheers.